So we are at the day one of the 13th Asia Financial Forum at Hong Kong, having Henri Arslanian, the PwC Global Crypto Leader, as well as the Chairman of the FinTech Association of Hong Kong, to join us to share about his insight and also trends on the crypto market and the blockchain market. So Henri, nice meeting you. This is Matthew from Blockchain.News.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So pleasure to have you here. So to start off, after such a tiring day one at the AFF, what's your thought on this forum?
Well, first of all, it's great to be here. I'm a big fan of AFF every year because I think it brings not only a lot of international visitors, but also a lot of people across Asia as well at the event here as well. Some of the topics that I found quite interesting, for example, I was moderating a panel earlier on where one of the big topics became ESG, environmental social governance. And I found that it was very interesting to see how ESG is becoming more mainstream when it comes to broader, not only finance, but also fintech, and that's super exciting.
Awesome. So also to learn more about the PwC Global Crypto team. So we knew that among the big four firms, PwC is the earliest team to set up businesses on blockchain and cryptocurrency advisory. So as the founder of the crypto team, so what's the inspiration for you to found this team during the early 2017, and what market opportunities that you observed at the time?
Absolutely. I mean, I think at PwC, our purpose is to really build trust in society and solve important problems. And God knows there's a lot of that in the crypto or blockchain ecosystem. Yeah. I think one of the things I found the reason actually we really set up this team was that as the crypto ecosystem is growing, actually there's a lot of support that is needed, not only on the technological side, but also what I like to say on the more day-to-day stuff, like crypto accounting, crypto tax, governance, controls. And I think that's something that a lot of firms like PwC can come and support the ecosystem. Because really for the ecosystem to go from 1.0 to 2.0, we need to solve and support the ecosystem and a lot of these elements. I think that's a big role PwC has played. I think it's been I really believe that for the industry to continue its growth, we need more of a traditional players that adapt and actually are able to support the ecosystem, and that's very, very important. I mean, at PwC, like I mentioned, over the last 18 months, we've done over 320 crypto engagements globally. I think it's something around over 15 different countries. So I think it's very exciting to see how the PwC is getting involved in the crypto ecosystem.
That's quite a remarkable achievement. So also, I think most of our readers are very interested. It's on the crypto capsule that you upload on LinkedIn every week. Yeah. So crypto capsule has been one of the most popular series on social media channels, especially on LinkedIn. So we also get to learn more about the behind the scene for all these crypto capsules. But taking a step back, so what's your motivation, or what makes you to start this series?
It's a great question. It's funny, a lot of people now recognize me on the streets or around the world because of my social media content, not because of my job or my other roles. The reason actually I started my crypto capsules was that I believe everybody is very busy, but actually people want to know in a short amount of time quality information. And that's what my goal is, that anybody that potentially does not follow cryptocurrencies on a daily basis in 60 seconds, for me, which is the time that it takes when you're in the elevator to go from down to up, you should be able to know the information they need to know about the industry. And actually, one thing about my social media content is it takes me, my 60-second video takes me between 4 to 6 hours on a weekly basis, and I do this on my spare time. This is not something that I do during the day, or it's really stuff that I do on my evenings and stuff. And but I really have to say I'm very amazed by the feedback that has been getting. Only on LinkedIn, I think I have over 500,000 followers now, and I think it's been really humbling to see the impact that these kind of content has, not only on people who follow the crypto ecosystem, but also on society as a whole.
Yeah, also the positive feedback generated by the community give you more passion to continue to do this, right? So also apart from the crypto capsule weekly recap in 60 seconds, so have you considered framing other types of crypto video content? So for example, HKSFC, crypto exchange regulation in 2 minutes, things like that?
No, it's a good request that I get quite a lot. Actually, I try to summarize a lot of the content, the complicated stuff, in easy ways, often via articles. For example, on my LinkedIn, I have articles of 5 things you need to know about the new Hong Kong exchange regulations, or 6 things you need to know about this and that. I really believe that if you're not able to explain something in easy, fast ways, it means you don't understand the topic well enough. And I think I really believe that putting content out on social media is very, very important. I think it's something that the broader crypto ecosystem, we kind of had this moral duty to make sure that we're able to educate not only people who are in the ecosystem, but also the general public for the ecosystem to become, for the cryptocurrency or the crypto ecosystem to become more mainstream.
Okay, so also let's talk about the key trends in 2020 in terms of the crypto and blockchain industry. So we start with DeFi. So DeFi has gained a lot of traction in 2019 with its total value locked it amount to like 666 million compared to 290 million in 2018. So for lending is one of the most dominant areas in DeFi. So do you envision the future of lending market is kind of the race between the lending business by virtual banks and the like DeFi protocols like MakerDAO?
It's a good question, I have to say. I don't think the whole DeFi on lending especially is going to have an impact on the traditional lending markets of virtual banks and others. I think what's going to be very interesting is to watch how DeFi grows in 2020. Actually, one of my predictions for this year was that we'll see actually DeFi go from become a bit more mainstream. It's still at a very early stage. You're mentioning some of the data on the Maker family. What I think will be interesting is what I'm following this year will be what are some of the other DeFi projects that will gather a bit more steam, and how are they going to grow over the next couple of months. Personally, I think the DeFi entire decentralized finance movement is very, very interesting, because if you think about the original vision of Satoshi of what Bitcoin was, it was to actually allow peer-to-peer transfers without intermediaries. DeFi is kind of the 2.0 of that, and I'm following. I think we're at the very, very, very early stages. If we're at the very early stages of cryptocurrencies as a whole, we're at the very, 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 very early stages of DeFi as an ecosystem.
Yeah, understood. So also as Ethereum is progressing the transition of proof of stake with the upcoming ETH 2.0, so what's your take on the staking and stable coins in 2020?
Oh yeah, I think it's a big, I'm personally very interested to see how proof of stake is going to develop, not only for Ethereum, but other cryptocurrencies as well. I think when it comes to some of the impact that staking is going to have. I think one of the big debates that I'm hearing more and more is some of the environmental impact of proof of work. Yeah. For example, some of the debates we had today at the AFF here was the environmental impact that proof of work on Bitcoin has, for example. Today, according to some data, one Bitcoin transaction consumes the same amount of electricity as the average US household does for 20 days. As we're moving to an era where ESG, climate change is becoming more predominant, I think that's one of the debates we're going to have. So I think I'm very interested to see, when you mention stable coins, I think the development and increased volumes of stable coins are very, very interesting. And I think one of the, not only Libra, but other stable coins that we're seeing in the market, the regulated ones and the unregulated ones, as well as the decentralized ones that you mentioned, it's going to be very interesting development to follow.
Okay, so let's move on to Facebook Libra and the rise of China. So regarding Facebook Libra, Nobel Prize winning economist Patrick Hyatt once proposed the concept of denationalization of money. So in your opinion, to what extent Facebook Libra can kind of achieve this vision if it can be launched?
I think, in the history of money, if we look at it, for sure, the Bitcoin will be an instrumental phase. I think in the history of cryptocurrencies, definitely I think the announcement of Libra was the biggest news following the launch of Bitcoin 11 years ago. What it really is, I find interesting with the impact of Libra was how we brought the topic of central bank digital currencies on top of the agenda, not only of central banks and policymakers, but also financial institutions. I think the Libra announcement is a very bold one, and I think it really, really catalyzed the whole discussion on the topic. We may not like Libra, we may love it, you may hate it, but I think one thing is for sure, it really brought it on top of the agenda. And to be honest, I think Libra is really trying to solve a problem that the crypto ecosystem cares about. The one best example is cross-border remittances. Today, the fact that we have to pay between 5 to 7% on average for remittances around the world, and that's an average, it often goes double digit for any emerging markets, where there's more than $500 billion US sent annually by over 250 million migrants. The fact that Libra is trying to tackle this issue, I think, is a very noble one.
Okay. Also, like talking about CBDC, so obviously the launch of Libra's white paper also heated up the competition of developing CBDC among nations, especially China. So we would also like to learn more about, because recently the ECB, European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde, also pushed the development of CBDC. So to you, like, what are the key issues to be addressed before we can witness the first CBDC to be launched?
Well, I think it's going to be very interesting. I think 2020 will maybe remembered in history as a year of CBDC development, not only with the documents, some of the work that has been done by the ECB, the BIS, and others, but I think how we may see some countries experiment with it. I think obviously the big news here is China. I think one of the things that I think is very interesting with CBDCs is how it allows policymakers to achieve their goals. I mean, one of them example is today, when as a policymaker I enact a certain policy or reform, the way we get GDP estimates or we can measure the impact of it on an economy is using very traditional methodologies of surveys and others. I think if we move to a CBDC economy, obviously we can know the impact of a certain policy instantaneously and live, and we can actually tailor policy making way more effectively, efficiently. I think the other one is corruption as well. One thing that always amazes me is that if today, and if you want to launder money, you want to commit illicit activities, so the best tool is cash, good old cash. And I think that's something that ECB has actually acknowledged in some of this research as well. I think one of the potential idealistic goals of moving to CBDCs is that we have a fighting chance to try to put an end to not only corruption, but also potentially money laundering by central bank digital currency. So I'm actually very excited about the topic. I'm very happy to see policymakers like the BIS, like the ECB, issue consultations and research on the topic. And I think that's much needed. And I think Libra, again, catalyzed the topic. And I think we have to thank Libra for catalyzing this topic at the global level with these relevant stakeholders.
Do you think money laundering is the concern that kind of hold Libra back and also accelerating the development of CBDC at the same time? So is it kind of like, so if Libra, like the key issue or concern is like, if Libra is to be launched, it's hard for governments to trace the risk of money laundering?
I would disagree with that argument because honestly, I think that, as a holistically, I mentioned this many times in the past 1 or 2 years in my various speeches around the world, I actually think some of the large leading crypto exchanges today have probably better KYC and AML than a lot of traditional banks, just because they're able to leverage the latest RegTech, LawTech, and technology available from that perspective. And same thing applies as well for Libra. Obviously, any wallet that is coming on the Libra blockchain will have some kind of KYC and broader AML and counterterrorism financing monitoring, which makes it way better than we have in cash. So I think it's a very short-sighted argument to really push back on Libra because of money laundering or KYC, because we have the tools to actually put an effect on that. I think the impact it may have on other more macroeconomic factors, I think are probably bigger issues our policymakers are concerned about, as we saw in the US and other countries, that I think are going to be more probably relevant to policymakers than the risk of the risk of money laundering or dirty money entering the system.
So the concern is more like on the impact of monetary sovereignty of the coins.
I would say it's a more monetary solid. I think it may challenge some of the status quo that we have today. I think that's undeniable. Obviously, while some of the reports in the public domain mention that Libra will be backed by US dollar, euro, Japanese yen, Singapore dollars, and others, I think it really, for the first time in a long time, kind of provides a challenge to the status quo. And I think that's we saw some of the reaction from policymakers in the U.S. and elsewhere because of Libra. I really believe that Libra, when you look at the national level, let's say within the U.S., within Australia, within Canada and Hong Kong, within the country, the use case of CBDCs is good. But I think where it really becomes Libra has a great use case is when it comes to cross-border payments for the reasons that I mentioned. And I think if Libra is able to solve that problem or at least catalyze working towards a solution, I think that's already great news.
Okay. Also, we knew China has set up the blockchain standardization committee in November last year, and also they enact the cryptography law earlier this month. So, do you think the cryptography law enactment will pose more like a positive or negative signal for the crypto businesses in China?
It's a good question. I would say I think what's really important here is to look at the development of blockchain technology in China and Asia. I think Asia as a region is probably ahead of everybody else when it comes to blockchain development. I think what was interesting with the recent announcements in China, especially Xi Jinping's announcement, really puts blockchain development on top of the agenda, which is very important. I would say that I'm personally very excited about developments going on in China, not only with blockchain technology, but potentially with some of the reports on digital yuan going up. And I think this really combined with some of the other developments going on with AI, with broader TechFin, 5G, IoT, really makes Asia the region to be if you're working on the future of finance.
So awesome. So let's move on to the crypto taxation. So let's say in Hong Kong, given the taxation environment in Hong Kong, so what are the challenges to setting up the crypto taxation regulation in Hong Kong? And do you have any advice for the regulators?
First of all, I think one thing we have to understand, last 2 years, we saw a lot of regulatory clarity. Actually, according to Cambridge University, only 5% of regulators don't have somebody working on crypto, within the regulator body. Unfortunately, the same is not the case yet for tax authorities. One thing I'm really excited in 2020 is to see more tax clarity from not only standard setters, but also tax authorities around the world. And that's much welcome. And as much as people hate paying tax, I think tax clarity is much welcome. I think in practice, when it comes to, obviously at PwC, we advise a number of leading crypto players around the world on crypto accounting and crypto tax. One of the challenges that I've seen with my clients around the world, one of them is a lot of crypto companies are very decentralized, and many of them are involved in various different countries, and that creates actually a lot of what we call transfer pricing issues between countries, which is something people have to look very seriously. Second thing is actually a crypto accounting. It sounds very stupid, but actually it's very important to really consider at the accounting and tax issues from the get-go, from the start. I remember 2 years ago, we saw a number of ICOs from the US and around the world who did their ICO, and only after the fact they started thinking about the tax consequences of what they did, and that's a big no-no. One of the biggest advice that I give to any crypto company around the world, whether you're an exchange, whether you're a token issuer, you're a custodian, is to make sure you consider the impact of accounting and tax at the start. Because frankly, they can be quite beneficial as well. And I think that's the same as Hong Kong, Singapore, many of the established financial jurisdictions have actually, they don't have particular crypto legislation, but I think now you have a good service provider ecosystem to try to advise them on how to actually make sure they address these issues up front rather than dealing with them after the fact.
Okay. Also, talking about the field of non-fungible tokens, NFTs. So, in terms of NFTs, apart from gaming, what are the areas for NFT growth potential in 2020?
I'm very, very excited about the group of NFTs. I personally think gaming is probably the lowest hanging fruit in the space, but I think there's many other industries where we may see NFTs. One of them is actually, I would say, is the broader, the art industry, for example. Anything where you have an asset where provenance, traceability is important, NFTs really provide a solution for that, not only as part of the broader tokenization advantages, but also when it comes to solving issues like provenance and others. I think I'm very excited about the impact it can have the art industry. Also, frankly, very excited about the impact it can have on when it comes to legal matters, like land titles and other legal documentation. I was 2-3 years ago hoping that we would see this kind of the use of blockchain for government records and other land titles and others move faster. So it didn't happen so much, but I'm really excited about the potential NFTs. I still believe the best use case is really gaming industry, which is an industry now that's worth $160 billion a year. And frankly, for a lot of your viewers, I'm sure they have a lot of gaming assets that they would love to have the ability to be able to tokenize them by NFTs and be able to transact them and use them. And that honestly is not only the exciting development, but I think it's the right thing to do for the ecosystem.
Okay, so summing up, like, what's your personal goal for crypto and blockchain industry in 2020?
I mean, I'm very bullish about the crypto industry in 2020. My personal goal for 2020 is that we need the industry to move to the 2.0 level, is to become more institutionalized. And I think one of the big things we need to do as an ecosystem is to ensure that we keep the bad actors away. What keeps me up at night in the crypto ecosystem is a massive anti-money laundering scandal, or is to learn that some of the big crypto players are violating some of the existing rules in the ecosystem. I think it's very important that as an ecosystem, we ensure that we keep the bad actors away, but also that we spend the time to educate the broader population about it. Like a good example of this was with the central banks and regulators. Over the last 2-3 years, we've seen important policymakers really become more educated when it comes to crypto assets, and obviously then started embracing it. And I think we have a very important role to play in 2020. But again, I think so keeping bad actors away, but also educating, I think that's the right thing to do, not only for us as an ecosystem, but I think all of us individually as well.
Okay, so what a way to sum up the energetic day one of the Asian Financial Forum in Hong Kong. So thank you so much, Henri Arslanian, for your great insights shared to our readers. So we will have more interviews to come tomorrow.